hand, touching hands, reaching out, touching me, touching you. WrestleMania, ba ba ba. Good times never seem so good. So good, so good, so good. Yeah. What is going on, everyone? How are you doing? I hope you're doing good, because it is good to feel good. And this weekend it is WrestleMania 42, although technically speaking, if things had gone to plan, then this last weekend would have been WrestleMania 42 had it gone to the original plan of being in New Orleans, but I digress. We're back in Las Vegas again this year. I'm not as excited as like normally would be for WrestleMania. I'd probably put it down to a few reasons. I guess probably being back-to-back years in Las Vegas has kind of been like, did they really have to do that? Like, anyway, I'm going to get sidetracked to just talking about it. But of course, we are here to do match predictions for WrestleMania 42. There are 13 matches up and down the card, 7 on night 1, 6 on night 2, and let's lay down the predictions. So kicking off with the predictions on night 1, we have the Usos and LA Knight, yeah, versus The Vision and IShowSpeed. Now, it's incredible to think, like, 2 years ago at WrestleMania 40, I was there, like, seeing a disguised Prime Bottle and it revealing to be IShowSpeed, and he took an RKO for his troubles. Then, last year at the Royal Rumble, when he showed up as a surprise entrant, I was like, oh, bloody hell. And then he took that massive spear from Bron Breakker for his troubles as well. So it makes me think, what is he going to do in terms of wrestling here at WrestleMania? I think he's going to be in for a good showing. And I mean, The Vision, I feel like, has lost a little bit of direction, I think, owing to injuries. Of course, Bron Breakker got injured earlier this year, and then Bronson Reed also got injured, so it kind of left the remaining members of The Vision as just like a duo. So it's like, let's have them win the tag titles. And when we look at the Usos, I'm not really feeling them as a tag team this time round. I put it down to the fact that, you know, they have gone so long without being a tag team that I feel like there's a bit of rust there. Even their recent tag title reign, I just thought, I wasn't really feeling it. But anyway, I think if I have to go with predictions for this match, I am going to go with The Vision and IShowSpeed. I think Speed's going to do some really cool stuff throughout the match, and I wouldn't be surprised if he picks up the victory for the team as well. Next up, we have Jacob Fatu versus Drew McIntyre in an unsanctioned match. Now, it's crazy, a little bit of irony to think about is that it was Jacob Fatu, when he returned at SmackDown in Berlin earlier this year, he inadvertently cost Cody Rhodes the WWE Championship, and Drew McIntyre won the match, along with the championship itself. And then, of course, him and Cody went on a bit of a warpath with each other. And then fast forward a few months later, Cody then wins the championship back thanks to a run-in from Jacob Fatu, who cost Drew McIntyre. And then, of course, Drew McIntyre and Jacob Fatu have been on their own little collision course. And I feel like an unsanctioned match really sets the ground for them perfectly. I'm trying to think like what interesting spots we could see in this match. I do hope, you know, for the 3rd year running, that Drew McIntyre runs it back with his whole bored at work lol thing. And I wouldn't be surprised like if he does it as a video, because the first year he did it, it was a tweet. The last year it was a selfie, and then I feel like you just take the next step and just do a video and then tweet it out. I think that'll be very funny. But I think, you know, to give him some momentum going into this year, I think I'd like to see Jacob Fatu factor into like a title picture at some point this year. So if I have to go for a winner, I'm going to go with Jacob Fatu. As much as I love Drew, and as much as I love that, you know, he was champion a few months ago, I'd like to see Jacob Fatu win this. Next up, we have AJ Lee versus Becky Lynch for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. Now, I genuinely did not kind of clock on that AJ Lee was going to return. I was at the Raw after Clash in Paris last September, when CM Punk confronted Becky Lynch in the ring, and that was the one where Becky Lynch motorboated CM Punk. I know that sounds weird out of context, but like, you know, putting his hands on him and like, you know, Punk saying he's not going to put his hands on a woman, but he knows someone who will. And then, of course, on SmackDown later that week, AJ Lee returns. And I like that, they've had, it's kind of been like this on and off feud since then. So, of course, AJ Lee made Becky submit during the mixed tag match at WrestlePalooza. Then you had AJ Lee make Becky Lynch submit during the War Games match at Survivor Series. At Elimination Chamber in Chicago, you had AJ Lee make Becky tap and win the Women's Intercontinental title. And I feel like I really don't know the direction of what they could do with this match. I feel like they'll have a brilliant match, don't get me wrong, but I feel like this is probably where the feud needs to end. And I feel like if I have to pick a victory, if I have to pick a victor, I'm gonna go with AJ Lee to retain. And here's a little dynamic that I'm thinking about, just a hypothetical thing, is that I'd love it if AJ Lee retains, and then on the Raw after WrestleMania, then say an upcoming star challenges AJ Lee, and a bit in a similar vein to when Paige first made an appearance on Raw back in 2014 after WrestleMania 30, when she won the Divas Championship. I'd quite like something like that to be repeated. So yeah, overall for that to happen, I have AJ Lee to retain. The next match we have is a 4-way tag team match for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. The teams of Nia Jax and Lash Legend, the champions, versus Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, versus Bayley and Lyra Valkyria, versus the Bella Twins. So there's quite a lot of good dynamics in this match. And do you know what sounds really mad when you put it into perspective is that, ironically, the Bella Twins initially retired in 2018 when the women's tag team titles were only just introduced a few months later. So the fact that this is their first proper chance as a tag team challenging for the women's tag team titles is pretty cool for them. I don't see Jax and Legend retaining, but I feel like Lash Legend herself is going to go on to bigger and better things for herself as the year progresses. Maybe I don't see Charlotte and Alexa regaining. I think, I feel like, as much as I've loved them as a tag team, I feel like they are maybe going to go their separate ways as well. I'd love to see the inevitable breakup between them and whatnot. But I think by process of elimination, if I have to break a prediction for this, and I think justice for what happened last year, I'm going to go with Bayley and Lyra Valkyria to win this match. I think I was really gutted when Bayley was taken out of the match and replaced with Becky Lynch. And then, of course, in storyline, Becky Lynch mentioned that she, took out Bayley herself. So I feel like justice for what happened last year, and let's have, Bayley and Lyra Valkyria officially established as a tag team, because I know there's been this whole dynamic on Raw recently where management have not been taking themselves seriously, and let this be the moment that they establish themselves as an official tag team unit by winning the tag team titles. The next match we have is Seth Rollins versus Gunther. Now, it's interesting how this is kind of a happy accident in terms of like a match being made for WrestleMania, because I think original plans were like Gunther was probably going to retire somebody and that person got injured, and then I think Rollins was going to challenge Bron Breakker, but of course Rollins was still initially injured at the time, and of course Bron Breakker then eventually got injured himself. But I think, as a compromise, we've got something good out of this match, and both men are very capable of delivering on the night. Gunther is obviously riding this big wave of momentum from the last year. He's retired Goldberg, he's retired John Cena, he's retired AJ Styles. I'm sure he's going to retire somebody later this year. I don't know who that is, but I guess we'll find out. I feel like with this match, could be a match of the night contender. We'll have to wait and see, of course, what happens. But if I have to pick someone to win, and especially riding his wave of momentum, I want to see Gunther win this match. And, justice for what happened last year with Gunther, because I was a little bit underwhelmed. I'm not gonna lie, I was quite underwhelmed with that match and how Jey Uso won. But I digress. I want Gunther to win, and if Bron Breakker just so happens to be about, maybe he can cost Seth Rollins and lead to something between the two of them later this year. Next match we have is Stephanie Vaquer versus Liv Morgan for the Women's World Championship. I absolutely love Stephanie Vaquer, and I was absolutely buzzing when she won the Women's World title back in September last year at WrestlePalooza, but I feel like her reign overall hasn't delivered as well as I hope it would have done, because she's had her challenges. She's faced Raquel Rodriguez and she's faced Nikki Bella, but then she's also face both of them in a triple threat match at one point. And I feel like the roster of challengers, you know, there's not really this big depth for her to go through, so that's why I feel like there's been a bit of elements that are underwhelming on there. But then of course I feel like it's fresh to have Liv Morgan as an opponent, considering she won the Women's Rumble. I'm thinking, initially I've gone back and forth on this prediction, but I feel like, you know, to give the Women's World title a fresh start, and, you know, considering she missed out on a lot what happened last year, but of course won the Royal Rumble early this year, I think Liv Morgan should win the championship. But also at the same time, I think, like, you know, create a bit of a fallout within the Judgment Day. She's won the championship, but then everyone turns on her. And this is going to come into a prediction for another match in a little while. So yeah, I'm going to go with Liv Morgan to win the Women's World title. And then for our main event on night one, we have Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton for the undisputed WWE Championship. And I am just about to go onto a little rant here. You know, the fact that, you know, TKO have decided, do you know what this story really needs? It needs Pat McAfee, and also to a lesser extent Jelly Roll. I'm just like, no, absolutely not. The story was right there, you know. Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes have nearly 20 years of history with one another. You know, Randy Orton was Cody Rhodes' very first opponent when he made his main roster debut back in 2007. And, you know, obviously legacy and, you know, the on and off, you know, matches with one another throughout the years. And then, of course, you know, they've been on good terms since Cody returned to WWE a few years ago. It's crazy at the fact that, you know, someone at TKO decided that let's not make this the focus point, and let's focus on, like, Pat McAfee just basically shooting on everything, you know, saying WWE basically sucks at the moment, and, you know, this is the reason why tickets aren't selling for WrestleMania. Absolutely unnecessary, and, you know, it's creating, like, this false sense of tension. It feels very akin to, like, WCW in the year 2000, but hoping WWE doesn't go that way in terms of what happened with WCW. But anyway, sidetracked from this, I think Pat will have some involvement in this match. I mean, why wouldn't he? He's basically on the graphic for the match, accompanying Randy Orton. But I'd love to see, you know, Randy Orton basically, you know, he's like, oh, I want to accept involvement from Pat McAfee, but then he's like, nah, we're good, and then he RKO's Pat McAfee for his troubles, and, you know, that was all a ruse all along, and, you know, Cody's thinking, well done for doing that, and then psych, RKO to Cody Rhodes, and then Randy Orton wins the championship. You know what, I feel like we've been due a Randy Orton championship reign, because it's been, what, nearly just over 5 years since his last title reign, so I feel like he deserves something good. And you know what, heel Randy as champion is always a good thing. I always remember, like, those eras from, like, 2008, 2009 when he was champion, and he's just that bloody good. So yeah, have Randy Orton win and let him be a good heel champion for some time. And then jumping on to night two's predictions, we have Femi versus Brock Lesnar. And oh my goodness, I genuinely did not think I needed this match. You know, I still have mixed feelings about Brock Lesnar being back, I'm sure we all do. But you know what, the opponent that he has been put against with Femi, it's just the right call. And you know, Femi is obviously, if you've seen NXT, Femi has just been absolutely incredible. And of course his few months that he's had on the main roster have been equally excellent, and, you know, just squashing everybody. Do you know what I'd really love to see? I'd love to see Femi just squash Brock Lesnar and then just let that be it. You know, them having like an absolute barnstormer of a match. I don't expect it to go on long, because you know what, these two are like. And then without hesitation, big massive power bomb, and that is enough to put Brock Lesnar away. So yeah, with that being said, my prediction for this is Femi. Next match we have is a 6-way ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. So the participants are Champion Penta versus Javon Evans versus Dragon Lee versus JD McDonough versus Rusev versus Rey Mysterio. And do you know what? A ladder match at WrestleMania is always a great shout. I always feel like in some capacity there should always be a ladder match at WrestleMania each year. And this is going to sound crazy, the last time they had a ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania was 10 years ago at WrestleMania 32. And I feel like in the same vein as that match, they should really have, like, just do a complete wild card when it comes to somebody winning the match. And that's why I'm going to go with my prediction to win this match, to really make a moment for himself is Javon Evans. Like, genuinely, I have loved Javon, like, in NXT, and I've loved him, you know, throughout his short time in the main roster, and, you know, even in the Royal Rumble, he was the Iron Man match this year, so I feel like he could have a really good showing, and I feel like, you know, this is his moment. It's time to get bouncy, and, you know, being with ladders, he can be very bouncy in this match. And something I have just picked upon as well is the fact that when Rey Mysterio made his WrestleMania debut, Javon Evans hadn't been born yet, so that is really putting things into perspective. And also, I feel like this is just going to be a really good match. So yeah, Javon Evans to win this match, because he's a big bouncy boy. Next match we have is Jade Cargill versus Rhea Ripley for the WWE Women's Championship. Now, I feel like there's an element of this match where I want to say I'm excited for it, but then there's a part of it where I'm like, not too much. And I think I put that down to Jade Cargill's booking. Not Jade Cargill herself, but just her booking in the last few months, because she won the championship at Saturday Night's Main Event when she knocked off Tiffany Stratton back in November. But then she's only defended the title once on TV during that period. I guess obviously house shows are there, but on TV she's only defended the title once. And this is a problem that I feel like with the SmackDown roster. There's just not been a great pool of great challengers. There's been a similar vein to what I was saying earlier about Stephanie Vaquer and her challenges for the Women's World title. I feel like, you know, Rhea Ripley, on the other hand, is a great, you know, opponent for Jade Cargill. And I also feel like, you know, they could really create something really cool with this match. And, you know, Jade having, like, her baddies in terms of Michin and B-Fab, I feel like it's an interesting dynamic, but I really would love to have seen, like, Jade Cargill in the vein of, you know, her run in AEW when she was, I've lost track of how long she was TBS champion for, but she was TBS champion for quite a long time, and she had that massive undefeated streak to go with it. So I feel like to kind of give the women's title a fresh start, I think it would be nice to put it on Rhea Ripley and let her do all sorts of things with that championship, because, you know, Rhea Ripley is always good and Mummy's always on top. Next match we have is Sami Zayn versus Trick Williams for the United States Championship. I'm a little sad at the fact that this match doesn't also include Carmelo Hayes and Ilya Dragunov, because those latter two in particular have done some excellent work with the United States Championship, and even to an extent Sami Zayn also did when he won the championship the first time round in August last year. You know, for the most part, having them defend the United States Championship on a mostly week-to-week basis was really good. And then all of a sudden, Sami Zayn wins the title, and, you know, Trick Williams is challenger. You know, I love Trick Williams, I love Sami Zayn, but I feel like there's just a dynamic that's off in this match. So I feel like Sami Zayn is going to lose. So that means by process of elimination, Trick Williams is going to win. But I don't think Trick Williams is someone who would be, like, you know, up for doing open challenges. I feel like Trick Williams could be a really good heel champion, and, you know, maybe have him defend the title every so often, and, you know, maybe on some premium live events as well. But yeah, Trick Williams is my pick to win this match. The next match we have is the Demon Finn Bálor versus Dominik Mysterio. It's crazy to think the fact that they have been teasing this match even as far back as when Dominik Mysterio first joined the Judgment Day, all the way back in September of 2022. And considering that the group has gone through so many iteration and members have come and gone throughout that time, is crazy to think about. And then it's now only just been recently that Finn Bálor has been excommunicated from the group. I feel like, you know, this match was always going to happen. I thought it would have been cool if it was going to be for the Intercontinental title. Of course, that's how, obviously, Penta's champion, and that's the ladder match. But I feel like there is a lot of good stuff that they could play about with this match. And I feel like, you know, it is Judgment Day, no pun intended, for Dominik Mysterio. You know, he's got nowhere to run, he's got nowhere to hide. He's in the ring with a literal demon, and I feel like this could be the end for him. And, you know, I feel like Finn Bálor will definitely get the victory with this, and I feel like in turn, like I mentioned earlier, that this is going to lead to some kind of, like, you know, spiral of decline for Dominik Mysterio. I think at some point as well later this year, he's going to lose the AAA Mega Championship, and then of course I feel like he might even be excommunicated himself from the Judgment Day, and then the Judgment Day will all go their separate ways. I feel like, you know, I've been talking about them, you know, theorizing the breakup of the Judgment Day and the fact that they have been teasing it for so long, but now I feel like it's the perfect time for them to do it. So yeah, with the victory for that match, I'm going to go with, again, the Demon, Finn Bálor. Then finally, we have our main event for Night 2 of WrestleMania, which is CM Punk versus Roman Reigns for the World Heavyweight Championship. And it's crazy to think how the film Zootopia 2 has influenced the main event of WrestleMania. The Z-Bros are main eventing WrestleMania if you really think about it. But, of course, if we really think about it, you know, these two have had this massive amount of history, and of course going on the back of what happened last year, you know, Paul Heyman turned on CM Punk and then also turned on Roman Reigns as well, aligning himself with Seth Rollins. I feel like, you know, there's been the odd few bits of dynamic between these two throughout the year, and then of course at Survivor Series they were on the same team and lost, and then also stems from a bit of bad blood from what happened there. I think during that, you know, CM Punk was like saying Z-Bro is behind Roman's back or something. Of course, Roman returns at the Royal Rumble and he wins the match. I genuinely was not expecting Roman to win the Royal Rumble once again. And then of course these two have been at it with each other on the microphone, like, you know, throughout the last few months. And I feel like, you know, we're in a good position for what is a really good match at this year's WrestleMania. I'm really hoping there's no like big celebrity involvement in this match. I'm having flashbacks of what happened with Travis Scott last year. So let's just keep it between the two of them. Now, initially I was thinking about, like, you know, the dynamic of what if Roman wins. Now, I was initially contemplating it, but then I thought about something. When Roman was undisputed champion, I always distinctly remember him bashing the World Heavyweight Championship in the lead up to WrestleMania 40, and, you know, saying that that's like the second place prize or the consolation prize or something along those lines. So it just feels a bit ironic that Roman would want to go after that championship after he badmouthed it. So I'm going to go with a bit of a crazy prediction on this one, and I'm actually going to go with CM Punk to retain. I know that sounds crazy and people will probably crucify me for it, but yeah, I have got CM Punk to retain this match. I feel like there's still a bit more story that they can tell with CM Punk being world champion, but I feel like him retaining over Roman would be such a big deal for him. So let's just wait and see what happens, but ultimately, yes, I've got CM Punk to retain. And yeah, those are my predictions, and it's crazy to think, you know, how quickly again WrestleMania has come round. But of course, I look forward to watching WrestleMania itself. I'll be doing my reactions as I do every year, and this time around I am going to a watch-along event for the first time in a few years. I found an event in Manchester and I'm going with a few friends, and it's going to be absolutely buzzing, so I look forward to doing my reactions for that. There's even like a costume contest for that, which I have decided to enter. I won't give any spoilers about what I'm doing, but we're going to have a good time nonetheless over this weekend for WrestleMania, and let's hope we have a good show on our hands as well. So here's to WrestleMania, hope you're a good one, and of course, as per usual, I'll leave you with some advice, and that is always to enjoy yourself, stay safe, and make the most of every opportunity that comes your way. Thank you for watching, and peace.